France's Zinedine Zidane, center, takes the ball forward against Brazil during the final of the 1998 FIFA World Cup at the Stade de France. Photo, AFP 1958, Fontaine and the Baker's dozen. So rares football footage from the 1950s that Just Fontaine is seen as little more than the answer to a trivia question that gets asked every World Cup year. But he and his French teammates were so much more than that. For those who followed the World Cup in Sweden, which ended with a 17-year-old Pelé grabbing the headlines, France's performances were no surprise. The bulk of the team, including Fontaine, was drawn from a legendary Stade de France side that had dominated French football that decade. They even led Real Madrid 2-0 in the inaugural European Cup final, 1956, before losing 4-3. Born in Marrakesh, Fontaine made his initial strides in the game in Casablanca, before becoming one of Europe's most coveted strikers at Nice. By the time he traveled to Sweden, he was in his prime, and Paraguay felt the full force of his acceleration and finishing ability in a 7-3 rout that saw him contribute a hat-trick. He then scored at the beginning and end of a 3-2 loss to Yugoslavia, before netting the winner against Scotland. Northern Ireland were routed 4-0, with Fontaine scoring 2 more, and his link-up play with Raymond Kopa, the dazzling playmaker who had returned to Reims in 1959 after 3 European Cup wins with Real, was especially noteworthy. France were no match for a fabulous Brazilian side in the semi-final, but it raised few eyebrows that the first goal the Selecao conceded in the tournament was against the pacey and powerful Fontaine. In the third-place playoff, he ran West Germany ragged, scoring 4 in a 6-3 triumph. Whether it was a goal-mouth scramble, or running on to precise through balls, the defenders had no answer. And in the process, Sandor Kocic's tally of 11, most goals in a World Cup, set 4 years earlier, was shattered. Chances are that the Fontaine standard will never be reached. 1986, a tale of missed penalties. This is a match that features in pretty much every debate about the greatest World Cup game ever played. France had been majestic on their way to glory at Euro 1984, while Telly Santana's 1982 side, upset 3-2 by Italy with a semi-final spot on the line, were the poster boys for beautiful football. By 1986, both teams were in decline, reflexes a touch slower, movements more sluggish and finishing not quite as sharp. Despite that, they offered us a quarterfinal that will not be forgotten. Careca gave Brazil an early lead, but Michel Platini, scorer of 9 goals in that magnificent European campaign, arrived unmarked at the far post to poach an equalizer. Zico, one of the talismans of the 1982 team, started on the bench, but soon after he came on in the 71st minute, Brazil won a penalty. Socrates, perhaps the coolest footballer of all time, had dispatched a spot kick with panache in the previous game, but Zico, Brazilian football's biggest name since Pelé, quickly usurped penalty-taking duties after Adino, the captain, had placed the ball on the spot. Zico's effort was well saved by Joel Batz, and after Socrates had spurned an open goal from Kerke's cross and Carlos, the Brazilian goalkeeper, had escaped with no sanction for a cynical foul just outside the area, the game went to penalties under the harsh Guadalajara sun. Socrates, as insouciant as ever in his run-up, saw his effort saved, and after the next 6 kicks went in, Brazil were given hope when Platini ballooned his spot kick way over the bar. Julio Cesar's venomous kick was far too quick for Batz, but when it crashed into the post, and bounced clear, France had their opening. Luis Fernandez, one of the 4 midfield musketeers, made no mistake. "One of my biggest regrets is not winning a trophy for Telly," Zico would say after Santana's death 2 decades later. If anybody deserved one, it was him. 1998, Zidane at the double. The 2 finalists in 1998 took vastly different routes into the summit. France stormed through the league phase, scoring 9 and conceding just once, before finding the net just thrice in 3 knockout games. Brazil, who lost to Norway in the group stage, saved their best for the big games, thrashing Chile 4-1 and beating Denmark 3-2 before getting past the Netherlands on penalties after a 1-1 draw. Ronaldo, the Brazilian original, had been to the fore in those games, and his sudden illness on the afternoon of the final threw Brazil's preparations into disarray. To this day, no one knows what really happened, but Junior Baiano and others have spoken movingly of Edmundo's screams and rushing down to Ronaldo's room to find him having convulsions. At that stage, it seemed certain that the young man, widely regarded as the world's best, would play no part in the final. The French certainly thought so when they saw the first team sheet. But a second one had the number 9 penciled in, and sure enough he was out there as the teams lined up for the anthems. His teammates, however, struggled for focus, and France were comfortably the better side in the opening exchanges, though Fabien Barthez could easily have fumbled a Ronaldo cross into his own net. But Ronaldo was as culpable as anyone for France's opener, dawdling just outside the 6-yard box as Zinedine Zidane, sent off earlier in the competition for a petulant stamp on a Saudi opponent, thumped in the header off Emmanuel Petit's corner. On the stroke of half-time, he did it again, timing his run perfectly to angle another header past Claudio Farrell. Ronaldo's surging runs and dribbles mostly came to nothing, with Frank Leboeuf and Marcel Desailly imperious at the heart of the French defense. Even when Desailly was sent off with just over 20 minutes to go, it was France that finished stronger. Not long after Denilson, on as a second-half substitute, had struck the bar, France went up the other end and Petit finished off a classic counterattack. Brazil and Ronaldo would have to wait 4 more years for that 5th title.